So in my mind, an invitation is a kind of sort of open proposal that you place in the environment to really invite children, for example, to think about um, a balance, or to think about magnetism, or to think about mixing colors, for example. So it's a very sort of open-ended invitation, and then it's up to us to kind of notice how children are responding to those materials and so on, the kind of connections that they're making. Where I think a provocation in my mind is a lot more targeted. And a provocation is really something that a question you ask, a material that you add, a problem you pose, because you want to support learners with building theories. So maybe I also need to expand on this idea of theories, right? There is work from early childhood professor of early childhood studies in New Zealand. Her name is Helen Hedges. And she talks about children's working theories. And I've always been really taken by this idea of working theories. So this idea that children have these kind of fluid, temporary explanations about things that they encounter in their social cultural worlds. So, for example, if you would ask a child, why do the leaves fall in spring? They might say it's because they want to. Right? Children have explanations about where Santa lives, or friendship, or why spiders make webs. Right? It can be anything, really. And I think we have working theories too, right? We have ideas about COVID, about friendship, about climate change, and so on and so on. So I think this idea of working theories really positions children as critical thinkers, which is, I think, a wonderful thing, and inquirers, because they're constantly making meaning. So in my mind, a provocation is something that really supports children with that theory building, with adapting these theories. So, for example, at some point, the children were exploring floating and sinking. And we were talking about this. It turned out that their theory really was that light things float and heavy things sink. So they hadn't really come across this idea of buoyancy yet. So the next day, what I did was that I added some heavy things to that water trough, like heavy things that float. And then all of a sudden, there's something there, a provocation in my mind, that really kind of provokes children into adjusting, perhaps, or rethinking their working theory. So these are also often things that I bring to meetings that I have with children. And you kind of pose that problem, or you ask that question, like, hey, look at that. Now we've got something that's heavy, but it's still floating. How does that work? Right. And I think in my mind, these are provocations. So again, I think the role of provocations in that environment as the third teacher in those learning spaces is to provoke the children, or inviting the children in adjusting these theories. Like that. So all of a sudden something is there that supports you with refining your ideas. So that's how it sits in my mind.